moment with George Washington.
Splendid prospect, isn't it? But why here? In the 1790s, I could stand on this spot and witness nothing but fields and marsh as far as the eye could see. The question is, why this obscure retreat for a new federal city? To be sure, it had to do with politics, a central site midway between north and south. For me, there was a larger reason, the Potomac. The river held out the promise of unlimited trade with the Ohio Valley. But what barriers? So I built the Potomac Canal. Goods could now pass the falls. It was a fine idea, but the coming of the railroads put all this out of business. Washington would never become a great trade center. Even so, we managed to overcome that lapse.
A moment with Augustus Woodward.
I came to this town in 1797 to practice law and buy land, but was drawn, quite frankly, to Rhodes Tavern on 15th and F Streets. People swarmed there, thundering about their lack of representation in Congress, their powerlessness in public affairs. I made impassioned pleas to Congress. Washington, I wrote, is a town of about 15,000 souls. They have a right to an elective and representative body. In 1802, I was elected to the first city council. Yet Congress continued to interfere in our local affairs. And so, said I, citizens of the territory of Columbia, the crisis of your destiny has finally arrived. Act with the coolness and foresight of great and liberal minds, and you save yourselves, and in so doing, perhaps save your country.
A moment with Pierre L'Enfant.
This is the city I designed, but did not live to see. For they buried my plans in red tape and buried my body in a pauper's grave. My map was about ready in 1791, but the bureaucrats in charge of promoting the city wanted me to rush so they could auction off city lots to fund the Capitol. I pleaded with Jefferson, how do you change a wilderness into the seat of government in so short of time? So, they fired me, printed my map without any of my corrections. 100 years later, the federal government dusted off my plans and cleared them all of trains and cows. They even moved my bones to the National Cemetery. From here, the city looks just the way I dreamed.
A moment with Mary Edmondson.
I hate this place. A slave deal is at Duke Street, Alexandria. These cells meant horror. I was imprisoned in 1848, part of the Pearl Affair. An abolitionist ship called the Pearl had come to spirit us up north out of the grip of slavery in the nation's capital. On April 15th, 77 of us clambered aboard. When the wind snapped into Pearl sails, I never felt so free in all my life. What an ill wind. It blew so hard we were forced to anchor at Point Lookout. That night we were captured and sold to slave traders down south. The outcry over the Pearl helped to abolish slave trade in the district. But for me, it meant another journey into fear.
Funding for DC Moments is provided by Bell Atlantic and the DC Community Humanities Council.
For more information on the District of Columbia's bicentennial celebration, call 202-727-5753.
A moment with John Cook.
I owe everything to my Aunt Alethea Tanner. She bought my freedom in 1826. By the outbreak of the Civil War, freedmen in Washington outnumbered slaves 5 to 1. In spite of restrictive laws, we did quite well. Opportunities for blacks were greater in Washington than any other place in the country. I nurtured the soul, founding the 15th Street Presbyterian Church in 1842. From the basement was born our school. Eventually, it outgrew the church basement to become Dunbar High School in 1916. This is why we honor the past. Their stories can illuminate our future, set us free again and again.
A moment with Alexander Shepard.
How the mighty are fallen. That's me. Right after the Civil War, Congress appointed me governor of the new territorial district combining Washington City, County, and Georgetown. You see, the war had nearly worn out the city. A pleasant town had become a quagmire. Then I set to work, built the sewers, paved the streets, and planted 50,000 trees, and rammed all these projects through in just 3 years. They called me boss. My reward? Congress put an end to all forms of local government, citing overspending. Of course, those black folks with the vote didn't sit well in this southern town either. So in 1874, we lost home rule, but you know, we gained a modern city. That and this statue, not a bad epitaph.
A moment with Calvin Chase.
1109 I Street. This is where I put to bed my newspaper, the Washington Bee, between 1882 and 1921. From here came the hot type that thundered against all forms of racism. Rage came easy to me. My father had been gunned down on the streets of Alexandria. His white killer went free. I learned to get even by using facts and figures. To me, the federal government was the key. It promoted segregation. Sure, there were some professional opportunities, but I wrote, the government is using black messengers and laborers as so many slaves for white officials. The Bee was no radical journal, simply a matter of record for a neglected people. We saw what was going on and vowed to change it.
A moment with Alice Pike Barney.
I came to Washington in 1888. It was an artistic wasteland. 2 theaters, a single art gallery. For any society to be great, it must have active participation in the life of the imagination, the arts. So in 1903, I built Studio House on Sheridan Circle. Artists from around the world came here. They mingled with presidents and federal officials. But I wanted the arts for all people. So I founded the Sylvan Theater, right next to the Washington Monument. Free theater, free for everyone. A healthy artistic life is key to every nation. For art is the way we transform our daily lives into wisdom. Without it, we are lost.
Funding for DC Moments is provided by Bell Atlantic and the DC Community Humanities Council.
For more information on the District of Columbia's bicentennial celebration, call 202-727-5753.
A moment with Shep Allen.
The things I've seen here on U Street. It's amazing how much this building, just bricks and mortar, was part of my life. I was manager of the Lincoln Theater for over 30 years. The greatest stars, the most dazzling shows came here. But for me, this building was more than just a theater. That tunnel led to the Lincoln Colonnade, where we all came together. Lincoln was more than just a glittering centerpiece of black culture. For many of us, this was school and life. It's good to see lifeblood coursing through these walls again. Lincoln was too good to lose. I'm glad it's finally getting built up.
A moment with Roger Morigi.
Here we were in the early days at the National Cathedral, proud to be making a building that gives Washington so much of its stature, its power, its beauty. There were days when the workshop was more like the UN, guys from Italy, Greece, Germany, England. Most carvers are from families of carvers. My father worked on the Library of Congress in the 1890s. I followed him from Milano in 1927. Became master carver at the cathedral 30 years later. It's guys like me that make it happen. This art will last.
A moment with Mary Church Terrell.
I was born in 1863, the year of the Emancipation Proclamation, and I lived until I was 90. My autobiography, A Colored Woman in a White World, tells it all. While I was allowed to spend my money in the white downtown, I couldn't sit and eat in its restaurants. Here, the cruel custom was white-only service. On these premises, I, an M.A. in classics and the wife of a federal judge, did not exist. In my 87th year, I picketed those establishments. My sit-down in Thompson's restaurant resulted in a 1953 Supreme Court decision that was the death knell for segregated Washington. Because I was a disturber of the peace, we can today all eat together. So why are we still two separate societies?
A moment with Carlos Rosario.
The Park of the Pigeons, heart of Hispanic Washington. I came here often in the 60s to organize the Latino community. But to some outsiders, you know, we were an invisible community. We had to raise consciousness, attract attention to our growing numbers. So in 1969, I helped start the Office of Spanish-Speaking Affairs. The following year, we held a huge block party to raise money. That became an annual event, a celebration of our culture, a Hispanic festival. As we marched down these streets, we joined hands, Latinos of many countries and color, with different political ideas, yet united, saying simply but firmly, we are here. In 1987, I passed this way one last time, and you know, it felt good.
Funding for DC Moments is provided by Bell Atlantic and the DC Community Humanities Council.
For more information on the District of Columbia's bicentennial celebration, call 202-727-5753.